Tulsa looks good on you. Tulsa looks great on Chris Streich. With you are a local appraiser, Chris, now for over 20 years in the real estate business here in the Tulsa area. And I'm so excited to pick your brain and for you to share with us all the different things that are going on in the world of appraising here in Northeast Oklahoma. So Chris, just introduce yourself and share a little bit about you, what you do.
As you said, my name is Chris Streich. I've starting my 21st year in the real estate appraisal business. I'm a certified residential appraiser, which means I can appraise any value of residential property or land, and a limited amount of commercial property, which I don't do because I stay busy enough in the residential and the land stuff to keep me more than busy. So yeah, 21 years in the business. I've seen a lot of change over that. I mean, we started where we were helping mortgage lenders get an email so we can email them reports, because they're like, "What's an email?" And it's gone to do a lot of our report in the field on a tablet while we're at the house. So it's seen a lot of change over the last 20 years.
Well, Chris, that's a great point, and I'm with you on many years in the business, just celebrated 22. So that means we've been through a lot of different market shifts and changes. Back when we got in the real estate business, it was pretty good. And then there were some pretty dramatic changes, like, that whole mortgage debacle time where we
Right.
had people that were upside down in their homes, and it was a nasty, rough time. This time coming forward, we've had this pandemic and increase in values by quite a bit in our local market, higher than we've had and that I've seen. And so, as an appraiser, it is your job to defend and justify the value that is assigned to that property. So what are some challenges with that, or what guidelines must you follow to make sure you're doing your job correctly and still helping people buy and sell houses?
Right. Well, you hit on a very key point there when you said, you're standing and defending a value of the property. And really, that's what we do as appraisers. We're independent of the buyer, the seller, the realtors involved. We're there. We're only an advocate for the value. We're there as a basically as a professional witness to market values, to go through these forms and to come up with a market value. It's pretty complex, as you can imagine. Most of the loans, most of the time, I'm only involved in stuff as far as a transaction when there's a mortgage involved. So that automatically triggers a whole lot of regulations. I always say this is real easy when it's your money, but when you take a loan, you have to realize it's not your money; it's the lender's money, and the lenders are backed by federal programs, whether it's a FHA loan, a conventional loan, which is Fannie or Freddie, Native American loans, VA loans. There's a couple other ones, but they all go by regulations. And at a minimum, the selling guides, as these government agencies have put out, each one of them at least 230 pages long, as far as regulations that we have to go by and how they want us to pick comparables, how they want us to say something in the report. It's very, very highly regulated. And even more so in the last, even since 2008, 2009, our downturn, the mortgage debacle or whatever, they put a lot of new regulations in place at that time. And government, they keep on piling on. They don't take away. They just pile on and make new and change things up. One of the most recent ones, Fannie Mae came out and said, as of April 1st this year, every appraisal has to be measured by an Ansi Standard. Ansi is a national building code, ANSI. Some people call it Ansi, some people call it ANSI. There's a national building. You can find it by Googling ANSI square footage. But basically, every house that's ever measured has to go by that. And so we're running into some problems where we have some areas that have a lot of basements, like walkout basements, and a basement is a basement. And so it's the ANSI paperwork is very, very specific about what's a basement and what's not a basement.
So where we've seen this have an impact on our clients is if in the past they'd had an appraisal measurement, and even if it was you or any other local trusted third-party appraiser, you had different rules back then, and it might be a different number. And now whenever they come to us and it's time to evaluate their property, I'm not an appraiser and it hasn't been professionally measured on today's guidelines. So we could be helping determine a value based on a different size than what it will measure at today. So what are
Right.
some repercussions of that?
Yeah, so that's actually a pretty decent book of business for me, and just measuring houses to make sure we're right. It's ironic that they came out this year and said, "Hey, we need to go by this standard." The standard has been around for more than 15 years because I've been using it for 15 years. An attorney once told us in a class, he's like, "Find a standard, measure it by that standard. So if you ever have to go before the board or a judge or whatever, you have something to stand on other than, well, this is just how I measured it." And honestly, that's how it went for the longest time is, well, this is just how I've always done it. Whether it's right or wrong, that was the excuse. This is how I've always done it. So um, we do a lot of measurements of pre-listing to make sure. I always say it's typically charges $100, best $100 that somebody can spend, because you know that's one X factor that's not going to jump out at the end. It's one thing to think, well, I think I've got 2,400 square feet, and then you actually have 2,100 square feet. Well, there's a lot of value wrapped up in that 300 square foot difference, and you don't want that to come bite you in the derriere right when you're at contract time and you think and you're already packing your bags to move out of this house, and then all of a sudden it comes to a screeching halt because the value is not there because you have a difference in square footage.
Yeah, this just makes it kind of tough for us realtors in, assigning a value or helping the client get to a price that seems reasonable based on the current market. Is sometimes a different approach than what you guys are coming at. And we all have the same goal, and that's to help these people sell their home and a buyer buy the home. So when it comes to value, are you really, really just set on price per foot? Are you really instead looking at bedrooms, bathrooms, amenities, location, and things like that as well?
Right. Well, and that's always been a kind of a dividing line between realtors and appraisers, because realtors are like, oh, this house down the street sold for 160,000 or $160 an acre or square foot, excuse me. And ours is this big, so shouldn't we just do that? Well, no, because you've got to consider what comes into that price per square foot, right? Are we sitting on an acre or half an acre? Do we have a shop? Do we have a swimming pool? Well, all those contribute value, so they're contributing to that price per square foot going up or maybe down. So that's why I always say if it was that simple, an appraisal would probably be 2 pages, but it's not, and we're trying to analyze and see. Okay, like I did one the other day, had a swimming pool, and there's no other houses in the neighborhood that had a swimming pool. For a house that size, they had 2,000 square feet, so it was kind of a small house to have a swimming pool. Well, I was able to find one that had a larger house that had a swimming pool, and we compared that to other larger houses the same size to figure out what our percentage of sales price that pool contributed to it. So we were able to take that percentage, go to the comparables in the report, make the adjustment, and it came out about where I thought it was going to be if I would have just kind of, hey, it's going to be worth about $20,000. Well, it ends up there about 18,500. So that grid, the second page, that gets really confusing in the appraisal report that has all these different line items and we have all these values thrown around. We're constantly doing research and doing that kind of math behind the scene to see, okay, well, how did all these items add up to that $160 per square foot? Because it's not that they just paid $160 per square foot and you get whatever you get. All those items add into it. So I always say price per square foot's great in a real homogeneous tract home, Simmons, Roush Coleman, Shaw, where most everything is the same. Most all the quality is the same. It's just square footage and a couple other items. Then price per square foot might work for you, but typically that's why we have the grid, and that's why we work through all those calculations.
So what I'm hearing is you do a lot of work to really determine the best value based on the property and what all is inside of it and around it and attached to it. And there's a lot that goes on. And so really
Definitely.
we just need to rely on the professionals like you. So Chris, how can people find you? If they're buying a home, it's going to most likely go through their mortgage, their company. And so you are you don't work necessarily directly like that was a new rule that got assigned years ago, is so you are a third party unbiased opinion that comes in. But I love the idea of seller pre-appraisals. We've been a huge fan for a really long time. There's certain things that come up during a real estate transaction that can bust deals, and a low appraisal is definitely one of them. So let's just from the front end get that objection handled, right? So how can people reach you and find you to pick your brain or get you to come out and do an official measurement for them?
Right, definitely. So the best way, of course, is always going through your realtor, like you, and contacting me. I can always be contacted directly. My cell phone, honestly, text is the best way to do it, because you don't lose track of it very easily. My phone number is 918-284-5750. They can visit our website, brownappraisalservice.com. Really long, ridiculous one that we've had for 28 years. But yeah, and that has some contact in there. And really, that's, if you go there, find my phone number, text me. That's always the best way to do it. But yeah, these pre-listings, I do a lot of pre-listings. I do a lot of measurements. Just go out and hey, we have a real good idea of what the market value is. Let's just make sure our square footage is what the county says it is. I also do a lot of divorce work, a lot of death in estates, condemnation stuff. So I do a lot of other stuff outside of just, hey, we need to sell this house. We had the mom pass away, and the IRS needs to know how much the house is worth. Their mom's going into the assisted living, and we have to pay Medicaid or whatever it is, the value of the house. So yeah, but easiest way to reach me is my phone number, 918-284-5750.
Well, thank you for all this. I have a feeling we could talk a lot longer on the topic of home values and pricing. But for now, we'll end our conversation. And we're just so grateful for doing what you do and helping all our clients. So thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it, and look forward to doing more business together.
All right. See ya. Bye.
Bye-bye.